All right, you saw it in the title. Let's get right to it. Vlog 170 is going to start out with another truly ridiculous moment of poker shenanigans from the Peppermill. It involves a player who I'm just going to nickname the Honey Badger.
You think the Honey Badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
By the way, does that video ever get old? I don't think it does. Anyway, you may remember on Vlog 156 we had this particular player straddle for a hockey puck. Those are $1,000 chips at the Peppermill. And in this particular edition of the vlog, we see him do it again. He puts out 1,000 on his button, folds all the way around to the big blind because it's a sleeper straddle. If it's not raised in front of him, he gets last action. The big blind's a local player named Tim who decides to jam all in for 2,500 with the Queen 7 of spades. I guess that's good enough against a blind range out of a straddle for some. It wouldn't have been for me. Anyway, the straddle calls the extra 1,500. So we already have $5,000 in the pot, and the board runs out, and the player with Queen 7 doesn't hit anything, but the straddle shows the OCTO CRAB. The pair of threes on the river is good enough for the Honey Badger, and he takes down one of the most truly ridiculous bots that I think I've ever seen in my life. Sometimes it's hard to have a pair, and he proved it there.
I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter.
All right, back here at Peppermill a couple of days after that truly epic hand with the OCTO CRAB. Just cruised on in, listened to the latest episode of the Crush Live Poker Podcast. Bart Hansen continues to deliver great material there. If you want to get what I consider to be the best live poker training material out there, click the link in the description below and get 25% off for life just by going through my link. So as you saw in the last vlog, I ran extremely well, making a bunch of big hands last time out, but I played 3 sessions since then, and I managed to lose in all 3 of them. I did have one brief stint in a 1-2 game while waiting for the bigger game, and the fact that I won in that 1-2 game makes me even less likely to play it again, because you get to see how painfully small the pots are you win when you get good hands. Because on that day, I got all my good hands in the 1-2 game and then jumped into the 0-5-10 and didn't get any. So 3 straight losses in a row. We need to bounce back today. Let's hope the action is half as good as it's been in the last couple of weeks. Thursday session would start out by me gathering up a whole bunch of random chips that had accumulated in the console of my car from the previous 3 sessions. I know you've all been here. You just cannot possibly justify that walk to the cashier's cage when you keep losing every hand you play on a day, so you just grab your chips and take them with you. I know you've all been there. Anyway, I grab those chips and head on in to the Peppermill and find the second game getting set to start on table 5 at 3:30, much like you typically see me say in these vlogs, but it's clear that on this occasion, that game is not going to be the main game. Several of the players that typically make up said game got here earlier than they should have, and they jumped in what is typically an OMC fest on table 1. I've seen that dynamic before, by the way. The vicious cycle of the game starting earlier and earlier and earlier based on a few players, and therefore the other players just keep showing up earlier to get in the game, and it just drives the start time of the game ahead in the day. That's what happened here. Now, before I played a single hand, there was good news. Hundreds of you have commented on this over the years. The much maligned cards at Peppermill are now gone, and they've been replaced by new, crisp, faded spade cards, which actually lay flat if you peel them up to see them. What an amazing concept. Nice work by Mike Nelson to make that happen. The wait to get into the main game was painful. The lineup was terrible, and despite the quality of the cards themselves, I couldn't get a good combination of them to save my life, and found myself down 400 as I waited for the game. There was a hand where my $30 pre-flop raise with pocket aces in the hijack got the cutoff and button to come along. And with 90 in, the flop came king 6-5 with a couple of diamonds. I bet 50, and only the cutoff, a young guy I don't know, makes the call. So with 190 in, the turn is the 4 of diamonds. Not an ideal card for black aces, but also not a spot where I'm going to just check here. So I bet 75, and he doesn't think too long with it, and makes the call. So with 340 in, the river is another card I don't like. It's the 3 of hearts. So a one-liner is out there to a straight and 3 to a flush. But I'm still going to bet. I just know that I'm going to have to bet small to continue to get paid off by a king. And if he does raise, I know going in, I'm probably going to have to go out. I bet $110, and the good news is the raise doesn't come. As he makes the call, I show my hand, and he mucks. After making a questionable fold with King, Queen of Hearts in a tricky 3-way pot on a king-high board when I thought there was a good chance I might actually be in 3rd place, I open 30 with pocket 8s and get 3-bet and call 75 more. The flop came ace high and I check. He checks back and the turn comes a jack. Seemed pretty likely that he had kings or queens here and might be scared of that ace, so I decide to turn my pocket 8s into a bluff and bet 80. And he thinks about it for only a minute and lays it down. So we get that one through. And then it called for the main game, still stuck about 300. Didn't take me long to pick up pocket 8s again once I got into the main game. It's been my favorite hand for a long time, and I've traditionally run incredibly well with it, but this hand was tricky. I called a $125 3-bet from Mr. Z with those 8s, and got a 6-high flop. He bet 300, which seemed like an excessive amount given the size of the pot, and I wasn't sure what to do with it because I figured he's going to have a lot of bluffs here, but I ended up folding, and he showed me a pair of queens. The Professor, who was making another appearance in this game, straddles 10 on the button, and we get a +1 open to 30 and middle position calling. The button completes, and I'm in the big blind, cruising down the street in my 6-4. So needless to say, I complete. And with 120 in, it comes ace, deuce, 5 with a couple of hearts, and I check. The Professor, on the button, bets 35. I decide to check raise here with my combo draw to 125, and the others go out. The Professor is certainly going to bet with a lot of hands on the button, but this one apparently was one that he was not going to bet fold with, so he makes the call, and with 370 in, the turn is an offsuit jack, and I felt this was a decent time to slow down and check and give myself the option to call a bet if he were to make one. He doesn't. I then drill the flush on the river, and obviously now I'm hoping he has at least an ace. But it appeared that he didn't, as my $130 bet resulted in a snap fold. Then I pick up jacks in the hijack and make it 50 over the straddle, and Mr. Z calls me in the cutoff. Turtle, the pro from Lake Tahoe, 3-bets the button to 200. I end up being his only caller, and with 465 in, the flop is queen deuce 3 with a couple of clubs, and no one bets. The turn is another queen, and I check again. This time he comes out and puts in 2 black chips. With that turn card, I don't see how I can give up jacks just yet. So the river is the king of clubs. Maybe the last river card I wanted to see, and I decide to check. He bets 500 here, and this could certainly be a lot of things, but I didn't feel good about it, so I decided to fold the hand. Never got a look at it, but in all honesty, that was one of those hands that from start to finish, I didn't feel good about. Then, Turtle and Mr. Z play a huge hand. Turtle ended up having the suited Phil Hellmuth after straddling, and he flopped 2 pair with it. Still, he got raised on the turn and decided to call it, and then Mr. Z put him to the test on the river, firing $2,000, and he was so torn that he decided to literally flip a coin as to call or not. Now, I could not get him to say ahead of time, heads, call, tails, fold, or vice versa, and then see if he was going to act on it. He just flipped it and then said call, saying, yeah, tails I was always calling. For the record, I'm not sure I buy that. I think he was always going to call this bet, but he wanted to show respect in the sense that he might consider folding. But a fun moment in the game, nonetheless, and an unfortunate one for Mr. Z. I kept getting dealt hands like Jack 10 suited and calling raises with them, only to miss the flop. And it seemed like I'd lost most of my initial buy-in in just these small pots when I was playing good but marginal starting hands like that. I did get a $220 squeeze through with ace-jack suited on the button over a $40 raise, which got 3 callers. And I decided to add on for a hockey puck, making my buy-in $2,500 total on the day. The professor flops a straight on Mr. Z's pocket jacks and gets 3 big streets of value out of it. He can be dangerous when he's running good, and he was there. Then Turtle straddles to $15 in middle position, and I have ace 3 of hearts under the gun 1, and make the call, as do 2 others. Turtle in the straddle raises as I thought he would. He makes it 75 more, and the big blind calls. Against these 2 guys, I decide to go ahead and see a flop in this spot with the ace 3 suited for 3 more green chips. And with 270 in, comes king 3-4 with 1 heart on a rainbow board, and the big blind checks. I check this over to middle position, who bets 125, and the big blind goes out. With a pair, a backdoor nut flush draw, and a backdoor straight draw, I decide to come along here. And with 520 in, the turn is an offsuit deuce. If it were the deuce of hearts, certainly I would continue on here unquestionably, but in this case, my plan was just to fold when he bet. So I check, but that bet doesn't come, and it allows me to river the straight. Based on the fact that the odds are that he's either going to have the same hand as me or nothing at all, I figure this is the perfect time to check call whatever he did. He reaches into his stack and fires in 5 black chips. Now he's going to have a lot more aces than 6s in this spot, I would think, having raised pre-flop the way that he did. So I'm obviously going to call. And we have a $1,520 pot, and he turns over the 6-4 of diamonds for a bigger straight, the most aggravating hand of an already aggravating night. I did pick up the 5-7 of spades in the big blind and flop bottom 2 pair, and ended up getting 3 streets of value out of it to recoup some of that last money in that hand. Stuck big on the day, Turtle and I would bump heads again. For the record, I'd like to avoid that. He seems to enjoy it more than I do. He's under the gun 1 and makes it 45. The cutoff calls, and I have pocket 9s in the big blind and 3-bet him to 200. Under the gun, in the straddle, calls. Under the gun 1, calls as well. Both under the gun and +1 call this bet. The cutoff's the only guy who goes out. And with 645 in, the flop is Jack 8-5 rainbow. And I'm going to bet out here. I make it 225. Player to my left folds, but Turtle tosses in the calling chips. So with 1,095 in, the turn is a 6. Now, I don't think that he's going to fold a jack all that often to me here, but if he does have one, he's got to be concerned that I have an overpair given the line that I've taken. And it's also still possible that he has a draw here, and I'm still ahead anyway. So I decide I got to go for a big bet here. I fire 350. And he doesn't take too long with it, and calls. So with 1,795 in, the river is another 5, and I opt now to check. He starts debating about what to do, and I start internally debating on if I can call a big bet here. Now, I was trying to put myself in his head, and I figured that he would still think that I was steaming from that hand where he went runner, bigger straight against me. And I kind of was, but I wasn't all that bothered by it. And I didn't think that he would think that a big bet would work based on the fact that I lost that other hand. So my thought was, if he did bet big, that I was going to fold because he probably wouldn't think that he could get a bluff to work. However, rather than have to worry about any of that, he just says, I have 9-10 I missed. So I table the 9s and take down maybe the biggest pot I've ever won with 2 9s unimproved. As I'm stacking those chips, I pick up a couple of queens and the winners straddle on the button. Ms. T calls under the gun 2, as does one other, and I make it 75 after Mr. Z completes in the big blind and the action is back on me with the sleeper straddle format in effect. Mr. Z then quickly tosses in a black chip to call my raise, And Ms. T comes in as well. With 235 in, the flop is Ace, Jack, 8, Rainbow, and no one bets. The turn is a queen, giving me a set. Ms. T bets out for 100 here. I assumed that she was either drawing dead or very close to drawing dead, and I'd soon be proven correct on one of those. I make it 225, obviously wanting to keep her in the hand, and I, sure enough, end up accomplishing that goal. And with 685 in, the river made me want to throw up all over the table. It came a king. Now, she looks at her stack and finally decides to bet 325, a little under half the pot. Regardless of anything else, I have to give her credit for making a good bet, because I thought for sure she would bet more if she had Broadway in this spot. I also wasn't sure that she would just check if she had two pair. I've seen her make weird plays like that in the past in spots like this, so I decided I just couldn't live with myself for throwing away a set here, and I had to see what she had, so I called the bet, giving us a $1,325 pot, and just as I feared, she showed the exact hand I thought she probably would show, Ace-10 offsuit for a pair of aces that happened to river the gut shot straight, and we blow an opportunity to turn a losing day into a winning day, but sometimes that happens. Just two disastrous runouts for me, with my opponents rivering the nuts and me being unable to get away, results in an unfortunate day for me. We play for about another 45 minutes before racking up and booking the loss. All right, a $356 loss on a day where I think I put myself in a lot of good spots to make money. Obviously, I didn't on the day. That hand with the pocket nines ended up being a nice gem for me there towards the end, but ended up booking a loss due to those two big hands that I lost with those nasty river cards, the first of which coming against Turtle. And, obviously it's kind of aggravating that he manages to show up with a 6 there in a spot where he goes runner, runner, perfect to get paid off. But the moral of the story in that hand, and I don't hear a lot of other vloggers say this, but I will do it. The moral of the story in that hand is that I should have just folded that damn thing pre-flop. Ace-3 suited for 75 more, just get rid of it and move on. That's what I should have done. The fact that I'm up against 6-4 notwithstanding, it was just a spot I should not have gotten myself in. And the hand with the pocket queens, I don't know, it's rough. The one thing I'll say is, and again, over the course of my, 14 years of playing live poker now, when there's 4 to a straight on the board, especially 4 to Broadway, and someone bets at it pretty big on the river, you best believe they have Broadway. And in this case, I just didn't want to believe it. I mean, I've seen her make some weird plays in the past where I think it's possible she could show up with 2 pair there, not really knowing what to do, but I guess I should have just thrown that set away too. So those 2 hands turn what could have been a winning day into a losing day, but the action still very good here in the Peppermill 0-5-10 game. All right, let's get some viewer feedback in here. Stephen Martin writing in, it's like you hardly ever lose, at least on your post blogs. Come on, Stephen. Vlogs, get it right. So why don't you just quit your job and play poker for a can't usually miss career? Just asking. It's a question that I get a lot and a question I've thought about a lot. And I certainly could do it if I wanted to, but I think it's important to be balanced in your life, to have more than just poker going on. And if I were to quit my job, I would want to have more to do. And at the moment, I don't know what that would be. I mean, I happen to have a job that I like, anchoring the weekend shows on our ABC affiliate here in Reno. So I wouldn't want to give that up at this point. And by the way, I did just got offered a new contract doing that. So that was a good moment for me this past week. But I'd be lying if I were to tell you that I haven't spent a decent amount of time thinking about that. That's for sure. And I got a laugh out of this. Mike Nelson, if he's watching, Peppermill Poker Room manager, he's going to laugh hysterically at this one. Jake Cooper asks, how do any of these guys give you action when you advertise through these videos that you're a super tight grinder that almost never does anything remotely out of line? Well, first of all, that's not true, Jake. I do stuff out of line. And if I didn't, it might have some effect. But here's the truth. People show up to play poker the way they want to play poker. If you think they're worrying about what you're doing, then you just don't understand how this works. They drove to the casino and they want to play the cards the way they're going to play them, and they didn't show up to lay down pocket aces, that's for sure. And yes, the games are getting tougher than they have been in years past, but not so tough where it's going to matter. Tight is right. I've always believed is the correct approach. I remember my boy Abe Lyman, who some of you guys know from LA, put out one of my favorite tweets years ago. And he said, bankroll nits are the longest lasting poker players, guaranteed. And there's a lot of truth to that. I get called a nit a lot in the comments, which is fine. You can call me whatever you want. But the truth is, I think I'm actually not nitty enough. I think I actually play too many hands and wish I could tighten it up even more than I already do. I just have always struggled to do that over the years. But if you think that showing hands on a vlog and thinking that people aren't going to give you action is a thing, I'm here to tell you it's not a thing. Apparently, though, selling swaps for the main event by posting a nude picture to Twitter is a thing. I'm not going to show the entire picture, but maybe some of you guys saw that, got a laugh at that. I don't know what to make of it, but apparently that's now a thing. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we're back at it next week.
Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast.